See what we have. Okay, so do you remember how many types of tasks we had in listening? How many types of things were you going to listen to in this section? Does anyone remember? Do we have in the listening section? So, well, in the listening section, you have two different types of tasks. The first one is the lectures that we did last class. So you'll have to listen to a college class. And the second one, the one we're going to be working on today, is the conversations, right? Remember, we have said that in the listening, you'll have 2 or 3 conversations, depending on whether you have that extra one or not. They usually last around 3 minutes long in average. Could be 4, it could be 2 sometimes, 2, 3, 4 minutes. And you always have 5 questions per conversation. Okay, 5 questions per conversation. In the conversations, you're going to notice that you will never have more than 2 people speaking. So it's always going to be 2 speakers per conversation. Okay, so let's see. All right. The most important part to know about these conversations is the structure, as usual. So in these conversations, they are going to take place in a certain university in America. Okay, so these are American universities that we're looking at. My best advice to improve your score, if you in case were like struggling in this section, would be make sure that you understand how college life works in the US. Make sure that you have some vocabulary, some basic vocabulary about academic matters. So you need to be familiarized with, let's say, how the accommodation works, how the bus service works, how the exams are. I don't know, like just college life, right? The extracurricular activities, the clubs, and all that. That is going to help you big time. But honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I think that this is one of the easiest parts of the TOEFL test. I love teaching this conversations part, and I'm sure you'll love it too. It's pretty easy. The conversations are going to be held between a student of this X university and somebody who works in that university. We're going to call them a campus worker, somebody who works in this university, in the campus of the university. They are going to be the ones that are going to have the conversation. Okay? Now, what is the conversation going to be about? It's pretty simple. The thing is that this student, our student, always 100% of the time has a certain problem. He has a problem, he has a need, he wants something, he needs something, okay? Could be anything at all. Maybe he is struggling with an assignment. Maybe he wants to know about his grades. Maybe he, I don't know, is trying to change majors, trying to change dorms, roommates. He wants to sign up for the bus service. I don't know what it's going to be, but the student always needs or wants something. Okay, the student has a certain problem. So why does the student is talking to this campus worker? Because the student wants some suggestions from the campus worker. The student goes and asks for help. The student is trying to get the campus worker to help them. So that is the thing. That is the way that this conversation takes place. And what does the campus worker do? The campus worker is in charge of helping the student. So this campus worker, this person that works in the university, is going to try to help the student, to give them suggestions or advice on how to solve the problem that the student has. So for example, let's say that the student is struggling with an assignment. So the student doesn't know how to make it in time. So the student is going to go and talk to the professor about it. And the professor is going to be like, well, I think that you could do these 3 things. You could try reading this book. You could try, I don't know, looking for this information online. And you could try meeting with this person. So the thing is that's the thing. The student has a problem, and the university worker is going to try to and help this student. Okay. Do you have any questions about that part? How the conversations are going to be?
Yes, I have a question, but it's not about the conversation. It's just a remind that you're gonna give some tips about taking notes.
Oh, yes, now I remember. Thank you so much for reminding me. Great. So yes, that's what we're going to do actually. So we're going to try to orient our note-taking strategies with this question. So then another question about this. Okay, guys. So for your note-taking, we're going to right now listen to a conversation, and we're going to try to take some notes to practice. And then I'll also try to take notes, and we'll compare our notes. Okay, so first of all, the structure of your notes. I want you guys to do something like this. So if you see my screen, let's say this is your piece of paper. I want you still to use it horizontally. So it should be something like, should be something like this, okay? This is your paper in a horizontal position, like this, like the one I have right now. What you're gonna do this time is divide this paper into 3 as well. Well, in this case, 3, right? The previous one was I don't know, I think it was 6. So you're gonna try to divide it like this and write down your information in these 3 boxes. What we're gonna do is, first of all, during the first 30 seconds, I want you to just pay attention. Don't take so many notes in the introduction. Just listen to what the problem is, okay, for the first part. What you're gonna write down here, you're gonna try to look for the students, for the, what are these? The suggestions that the professor or that the campus worker gives. So let's say you have 3 suggestions. Here you're gonna write down the first suggestion, suggestion 1, let's say. Here's suggestion 2. And then suggestion 3, right? The third one. Let's say that you have 3 suggestions. And you're gonna focus mostly on taking notes on the details. You need to understand, try to identify what the suggestions are. So what is the professor or the campus worker suggesting? And here you're just gonna write down the details that you have. So for example, if the professor says you need to look for a book that is called XXX, then you're gonna write down the name of the book, where the student can find the book, and every other detail that you have. The same thing for each. Now, in this part of your paper, you're gonna write down the response that the student has to every suggestion that the professor gives. So if the student if the professor suggests that the student looks for this book, the student is gonna have a response. The student is gonna be like, well, I don't know if I wanna look for that book. I've already read it and I didn't like it. So you're gonna write down all that, whatever the student is responding to the suggestion here, okay? Not telling you to write everything, but what you consider important from that part. Same thing here, the response that the student has. So we're gonna say, response to suggestion 1. Here you're gonna write down the response to suggestion 2. And then your response to suggestion 3, right? And the details, of course. You need to be able to catch some details. I'm gonna give you more tips right now. So for now, you're gonna catch the details. Details, details and so on. So finally, this third box is not always gonna be used, but it's gonna be there in case something like this happens. The thing is, sometimes, a few times, not usually, but sometimes they, after the whole thing has finished, they talk about something else, something extra. So in case they change the subject, for example, I've listened to one where they start talking about a scholarship opportunity. After they're done with the problems, they change the subject to a scholarship. So in case you have something like that, they change the subject to something else, you'll take notes here. Only in case that they start talking about something else, okay? You're gonna write down your notes for that here. So is this part so far okay? As for the structure of the notes, I'm not telling you yet how to specifically take notes, but for the structure, is it okay? Is it understandable? Is it clear? This is?
Yes.
Okay. Remember, the third box is only in case they change the subject. Okay, so what about your notes? Now, the thing about your notes is that people have different note-taking strategies. If I show you my notes, for example, I'm going to show you my notes from a lecture, okay? Not a conversation, but a lecture. I don't think I showed you last class. So I'm going to show you how I usually take notes. I think I have photographs here too. Okay. Okay. So these were my notes for 2 lectures. Okay. So remember, I use the structure that I told you about. I usually do, not that one here. And when I take notes, I only write down things that I consider important, right? So keywords. If you look at this, I'm using everything I can to help me out. So in my notes, I have few notes. I'm not writing down full sentences, right? I'm not writing down things like, for example, this one here says civilization, no change, right? So they probably said something longer. They probably said, this civilization hasn't changed in centuries. I'm not writing down the full sentence, of course, because we don't have that much time. So first rule for your notes would be just write down keywords, okay? I don't write connectors, right? I'm not writing words like I'm not writing words like this civilization. I'm not writing complete negative words like doesn't, right? I'm just saying no change. I could even maybe instead of saying no, I could write down an X. So the thing is that you need to make them the shorter, the better. You need to make them as short as they can be, as concise. So for example, I say no founder, because I think that this religion didn't have a founder. So I said no founder, no text. They didn't have text, images or icons. And then I say emerge organically. And I don't know, it's been a long time. I don't remember what that was. But the thing is that I'm only trying to work on keywords, right? I don't have any connectors like that, these, because, anything like that. And other things that I have is these symbols that I'm using to help me out, right? So for example, I'm using arrows, I'm using question marks, I'm using bullet points to kind of list the most important things. So let's say that you have a definition and they say, okay, Shintoism is a religion in Japan. Then you can write down, okay, Shinto equal religion, right? You don't have to write down the full thing. And I'm trying to use different symbols to help me out. I couldn't tell you exactly what symbols to use or how to do it because it's different for everybody. Maybe you don't understand my notes. Maybe I won't understand yours, but you need to be able to understand your own notes, right? That is the important thing. Just write down keywords. You don't even have to write full words, right? Sometimes you can just write down consonants. For example, if you want to say birds, you don't have to write down the vowels. You can just say birds, right? And you will understand if it was about bird. You sometimes can write down maybe the first part of the word and you can say bird, something like that, or maybe bird. So it depends on what works better for you. The best advice I could give you in terms of the exact notes that you have to take is just make sure that you practice as much as you can. I don't know if I can show you more of my notes. Hang on. I have some here. I don't know if it will help though. Okay, maybe not, but that's the thing, right? Those are usually the tips. I had actually some here. Hang on, let's see. So you need to make sure that your notes are only keywords, that you use every symbol that you can, that you divide the paper. In this case, try to divide the paper in terms of the structure, right? And that's why I told you. I think the important part is the structure. For the conversations, you're gonna divide it in 3 and do what I told you. And organize them following the same order, of course. So don't write them down like start here and move on to the right side, to the bottom, or the top. So those are some things I could say. Okay, use any symbol that can help you write down keywords. Don't write down full sentences ever. Now, if I'm gonna be honest with you, for these conversations, you could answer the questions without even taking notes for the conversations specific, which is, I'm telling you this so that you know that your notes, even though are important, they're not the main thing. What I do to take notes is I only write down notes of the things that I have already processed and understood. And I know that looks like it's almost impossible because it's all, at the same time that you're listening, but you can do it. It's all about practice. Just try to take notes on things you understand. If there's a word that you don't know, for example, you don't know the word Shintoism, I didn't know what it was, write it down too. So write down the word the way that you think it could be pronounced. So Shintoism, maybe it's like this, or maybe it's like this. So just write down whatever you think, however you think it's written. Not because you didn't know a word, you don't have to take notes on that. You still have to take notes on the things that maybe you don't know how to pronounce or you don't know what they mean. You can take notes on that too. Okay, so maybe that's what I could say. For now, try to focus on the structure that I told you. So we're gonna divide the paper in 3 and we're gonna take notes based on that. Okay, is that okay so far? Before we start actually with some examples. Any questions now? Okay, guys. So this is what we're gonna do. Remember the structure, right, that I gave you. We're gonna listen to this conversation. It's between Amir asking for advice at the library. So probably Amir and the librarian. You need to divide your paper and you're gonna be looking for 3 specific things. First thing, you need to know what the problem is, right? You need to understand what's going on, why the student is going to see this person, the problem, the initial problem. You don't necessarily have to take notes on that, you can remember, but maybe you can write down some keywords. Now, the most important part is taking notes of the suggestions. What specifically are the suggestions that the librarian gives and how the student responds to these suggestions. So does the student think that these suggestions are helpful or not? Maybe the student doesn't like the suggestions that the librarian is proposing. Maybe he has already done them. Maybe he wants to try something else. Okay, so you need to make sure that you have those 3 things. Is it okay? Don't forget to divide your paper. I'm also gonna do it and then we'll send pictures of our notes. Okay, any questions? Okay, guys. So I'm gonna take notes too. and then we'll compare them. Here we go.
Hi, can you help me?
Sure, what's the problem?
I've got to write an essay on electrical distribution and transmission systems, but I can't find any suitable books in the engineering section on level 3.
Have you used the library search engine?
You mean where you type the keywords into the computer? Yes, I've done that. A couple of books come up, but they're not on the shelves. Someone's taken them out.
Well, I can put a reserve on them so that when the person brings them back to the library, we can put them on one side for you. Do you want to do that?
I don't know. I suppose so, but ideally I'd like to get started on my essay sooner rather than later.
Well, there are some other options. Have you used the journal database?
No, what's that?
Didn't you go on a library induction tour in the first week of term? They were running 5 days a week, morning and afternoon.
No, I was ill that week.
Well, we still do 2 library inductions a week on Wednesdays, and I recommend you go on one of them. You'll learn a lot of useful things. You can sign up at the desk on level 2.
Yes, I probably should do that then.
Well, I'll just quickly show you how you can use the journal database. If you go onto the library homepage on the computer, look, and click on Databases, here in the top right-hand corner, it takes you to all the e-journals that we have access to here at the University Library. You can use the search engine to find journals that are related to your keywords. See, if I type in electrical transmission, you get over 5,000 articles.
Wow.
So that's a good place to start. Meanwhile, you can always go and talk to your subject librarian. The person for electrical engineering is Mark Taylor. His office is on level 4.
Will he be there now?
Let me see. What's the time? 12:15. He'll probably be on lunch, or if not, he'll be going at 12:30. You'd be best to wait and come back at 2-ish. Then you'll be more likely to catch him.
Okay, thank you. Hi,
Okay. All right, guys. So I want you all to please take a picture of your notes and send them to the WhatsApp group. All right, we're gonna compare it. Take a look at them. I'm also gonna send a picture of my notes. They're not that organized, but we're gonna see how they are. Please take a picture of your notes. I'm also doing so. I'll try to send them in. Okay, so I received some pictures. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so before we start looking at the notes, let's talk about the structure of this conversation. First of all, were you able to identify the problem? Why does this student go to see the librarian? What does he want? Anyone? What's the problem?
He was looking for mechanical engineer books.
Okay, so yes, he wanted to find books about what? For what were the books for?
Electrical transmission.
Okay. Yes. So I think he wasn't able to find so much information about that. And how many suggestions does the librarian give the student? What are the suggestions? Maybe you can look at your notes.
I think she gave him 3 suggestions.
Okay, do you remember what those were?
The first one is wait for I think the book to the person who took it return. The second, it's about the journey, I think, and I don't remember so well the third.
Okay, does anyone remember the third?
Maybe it was looking for general databases.
Okay. Yes. Although I think that was the second, right? The e-journals. The third was something else. Okay, so we'll see. We'll see right now with the transcript, and we'll compare the transcript with the notes. Okay, that's the important thing. So if we look at the transcript, in the first part, the student describes the problem, right? The librarian's like, what's the problem? And the student says, I gotta write an essay on electrical distribution and transmission systems, but I can't find any suitable books in the engineering section on level 3. So you should, in your notes, have at least, if you want to take notes on the problem, which is optional, you could have something like that, right? Electrical distribution, transmission, books, level 3 maybe. And you'll have an idea of what the problem was. He's looking for books, probably. So and then the librarian starts giving some suggestions, right? And that's the part where you need to start taking notes. So the first suggestion is the library search engine, right? That was the first suggestion. Have you used the library search engine? And the student responds. So you needed to have 2 sides, right? The first one where you write down the suggestion. For example, if you look at my notes, I don't know if you're with your phone, but I wrote down library search engine. And then in the right side, I wrote down that the student already used it, because the student says, yes, I've done that. So he has already done it. And what is the problem with that suggestion? How does the student feel about that? He says that even though the books come up, they are not on the shelf. So they're not available as they say they're supposed to be. So somebody's taken them. So I wrote down something. In my notes, I have books not shelves, has done it, and no time. So those are my notes for the response that the student has. He has looked for them, but they are not on the shelves. And even though the librarian then suggests to put them on reserve, the student says, I don't have time because I need to get started right now. So that's why I wrote down no time, right? If you look at my notes, because I put down also reserve for the librarian and no time. So those are like the keywords. And then the librarian says, well, there are some other options. Have you used the journal database? So this is what you were telling me, the second suggestion, the journal database. So I wrote down journal database and then the instructions or the details, sorry. So for example, you have things like library inductions, the first week, how many days a week they were running them. And I think I wrote down that he was ill, right? The date of that. So I just started writing down the details for that. And finally, you have the last suggestion, which was meeting the subject librarian, right? The librarian says, meanwhile, you can always go and talk to your subject librarian. The person for electrical engineering is Mark Taylor. So in my notes, if you look at the picture I sent, you have subject librarian Mark Taylor, and I wrote down elect-eng, right, for engineering. And then the times, because I thought the times were important details. So 12:15, 12:30, come back at 2. So I have that. Okay, now I'm gonna look at your notes. So first of all, so for example, these notes here, I really like them because they look very summarized, but I don't think you have the dynamic of the conversation, right? So you have suggestion, essay, okay, that's the problem. And then you start having the suggestions, right? Engineering books, key computers. one problem that I find with these notes, for example, is that there is no categories, right? Everything looks to be in the same category. I don't know if that's something the student said or that the librarian said. I don't know what the suggestions actually were. If you know, then I would like to see something that highlights the suggestions, right? Maybe you can make this bigger. Maybe you could consider after you're done taking notes and you know the suggestions, you can highlight them, right? So my suggestion is the engine with the computers. The second one is the library induction tours, I think the e-journals. And the third is the subject librarian. So those are the suggestions. These are the details. But you don't have a lot from the student's response, right? You should have the response. So for example, for the first suggestion, at least you can say, no, that doesn't work for this student because the student needs to start now. So you can say no and time. For the second suggestion, you could say, well, he was ill the first week, so he didn't attend, and I guess it could work, so kind of. And the third suggestion, I guess he'll come back. So you should have the students' feelings about those responses, because believe it or not, a lot of times they ask about that. So maybe those are some things that I could say for these notes, okay? Try to move on like from one side to the other of the conversation. Now, the other one we have, let's see. Hang on, all right. So this is the other one we have. Okay. So yes. Okay, good. I like this. I like how this person separated a student from librarian, right? This is great. And you have, although I would have done it the other way, but this works. So you have some key details. So for example, reserve them. That was the first suggestion, put the books on reserve. I would have maybe marked the first suggestion with a 1 or something or an asterisk, but it's okay. Then you have the induction tours. So you have things like Library Wednesdays, that's key information. And then you have the electric engineering, Mark Taylor, right? And I like that you're not writing down full words. So you have elect engineering, right? This is awesome. And the time. Good, this is key information. And I like this too, sooner. So maybe you're missing some other information, but the structure is good here. I think the structure is kind of understood. Just make sure that you know which the suggestions are specifically, and that you know specifically how the student responds to each one of them. Even if you just mark like a checkpoint, an X, or maybe a happy face, a sad face, something that tells you the feelings, because a lot of times they ask for the attitude, the undertone. So that's important. And finally, we have this here. So to me, this seems a little bit too little. Okay, so you have suggestion 1, electronic books. So this is too little information. Okay, you should have more information. It wasn't, it was 2 minutes, so you can have more, and there are more important information. If you look at mine, they may be a little bit larger than the other ones, but it's because, I've been practicing a lot. So, but I have the most basic information, right? I have something that tells me what the suggestions are, suggestion 1, 2, 3, how the student responds. So the student wasn't able to attend, the student probably want to do that, he doesn't have time, or he will come back. I have the suggestions, the details, and everything else. And here I wrote down the problem because I thought it was kind of complicated, that electrical distribution. I was like, maybe they asked me about specifically the area, so I'm just gonna write it down. But the things that I consider important. You would only use this in case they change the subject, right? And talk about something else. So any questions as for our notes that we just took? Okay, guys. So try to do something like this for the next one we're gonna do. This time we're gonna answer the questions too, but we're going to work with an ETS practice set. So this is specifically from the TOEFL, the ETS, the TOEFL company. So it means it should be very similar to what you'll have on your test, okay? Let's see what we have. Although it's also about the librarian, I don't know, maybe we can start with another one and do that one later because it's also for the library. Maybe you're gonna get mixed up with information. Let's start with this one, it's pretty similar too, and then we'll do the other one, okay? So I'm gonna play.
Listen to a conversation between a student and an employee.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Come on in.
Okay.
So, what can I help you with today?
Well, I want to join the bicycle club.
Joining clubs is a great thing to do. Unfortunately, the bicycle club currently has no events because the office is being renovated.
Oh, well, when is it going to be done?
The anticipated date of completion is next semester, though it could take as long as a year.
Wow, that's a long time. That's a bummer.
I do apologize.
It's not your fault, I guess. So are there other clubs I can join instead?
Absolutely. There are a wide variety of clubs throughout campus. Since you are interested in the bicycle club, I would recommend the hiking club or rock climbing club. They are popular options for students who are interested in exercising and meeting friends.
Those could be nice. It's too bad about the bicycle club, though. But yeah, those would work. How about the hiking club? When is it?
The hiking club meets Friday evenings.
That won't work then. I have biology class on Friday night. I didn't think finding a club would be this hard.
Don't get discouraged. It's all about finding the right fit. In the future, the bicycle club's office will be finished and they will start up again. You won't always have biology on Friday nights either. What about the rock climbing club?
I do really like climbing. When is that one?
Let's see. The rock climbing club meets Tuesday afternoons.
Okay, yeah. I don't have any class or anything going on then.
So you'd like to join the rock climbing club?
Yes, please.
All right. So the process isn't too complicated. You just have to pay the dues, which aren't very large, and then fill out your contact information and attend the next meeting.
Is it going to be their first ever meeting? Like, will I be that strange new person that nobody knows?
It is not their first meeting, but you really don't need to worry. The whole point of clubs is that they're social and welcoming to new people. I'm sure you'll fit right in.
That's easy to say, but what if I don't?
Well, thinking negatively like that will only hurt your chances. So first, try to stay positive. They will probably ask you to introduce yourself so they can get to know you a little bit, and you'll be good from there.
Stuff like that makes me nervous.
It's perfectly normal to be nervous. But remember, everybody there was the new person at some point. But if for some reason it doesn't work out for you, you can always come back to me. There are plenty of clubs for all kinds of people. And like I said before, you may be able to join the hiking or bicycle club in the future.
But I should still try this now?
Of course. There are no guarantees, and one of the major aspects of college is going out and trying new things.
Okay. So now let's answer the questions. Let's see. The first question is usually going to be for the student's problem. So it says, why does the student go to speak to the consultant? What is her problem in this case? What does she want?
She wanted to join on the bicycle club.
Okay, good. Yes, that's right. She wants to join the bicycle club. Do you guys agree? Or should we check it? Okay. Now the next one says, listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the following question. So we're gonna listen to this part of the conversation. Pay attention.
All right. So the process isn't too complicated. You just have to pay the dues, which aren't very large, and then fill out your contact information and attend the next meeting.
Is it going to be their first ever meeting? Like, will I be that strange new person that nobody knows?
Okay. So the question is, what is the student attempting to express with what she says?
She was nervous.
Okay. Yes, do you agree, nervous, Natalie?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And yes, I think so too. I remember the student herself, she says, I always get nervous with that sort of thing. So that's why it's also important to listen to what the students' responses are. Now the third says, why can the student join the bicycle club? What's wrong with that bike club? Look at.
I think it's the last one. The bicycle club's office is being renovated.
Okay, do you all agree?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Then we have what kinds of clubs are similar to the bicycle club? So I think this has to do with the suggestions that the consultant makes. Let's see.
Number 3, outdoor activities club.
Okay, yes, hiking or rock climbing, good. The next one says, which of the following is not a benefit of joining the rock climbing club?
Maybe number 3, meet new people and make friends.
Okay, remember, it's not a benefit, right? Do you all agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. So the first one is correct. She wants to join the bike club. The second one is correct too. She was nervous. The third is correct. The bicycle club is off. Club's office is being renovated. The fourth is also correct. The professor suggests hiking or rock climbing club, right? Now the fifth one, I'm not sure about that one. I remember if we look at the transcript, everyone is mentioned except the fourth one. There's nothing that's said about getting better grades because of joining a club. Let's listen, or let's look at what the consultant said. The consultant said, for example, I would recommend the hiking club or rock climbing club. They're popular options for students who are interested in exercising and meeting friends, right? That was the point. And then he also says later, he says, okay. I don't know, where is it? Well, and then they say, right, there's no guarantees, and one of the major aspects of college is going out and trying new things. So everything's mentioned, right? Exercising is related to the first one. Meeting new people is the third one that we selected. And doing new things is the second one. The only one that's not really mentioned is improving your grades, right? That's not mentioned at all. So the option is not mentioned or implied anywhere in the conversation. The consultant says the whole point of clubs is that they're social and welcoming to new people. Okay, so careful with this one. When you have is not or except, you need to make sure that you read it well and you look for something that's not true or that's not mentioned. But in general, we did pretty good, right? 4 out of 5. It's a great score. What do you think? Any questions about that? Okay. Now, before we go, let's do one more. This one from the ETS, very quickly. It only lasts 2 minutes. And we're going to hurry up with the questions. Here we go.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a librarian.
Hi, I'm new here. I couldn't come to the student orientation, and I'm wondering if you can give me a few quick pointers about the library. I'd really appreciate it.
Sure, I'd be glad to. What's your major area of study?
Latin American literature.
Okay. Well, over here's the section where we have language, literature, and the arts. And if you go downstairs, you'll find the history section. Generally, the students who concentrate in Latin American literature find themselves researching in the history section a lot.
You're right. I'm a transfer student. I've already done a year at another university, so I know how the research can go. I spent a lot of time in the history section. So, how long can I borrow books for?
Our loan period is a month. Oh, I should also mention that we have an interlibrary loan service. If you need to get hold of a book that's not in our library, there's a truck that runs between our library and a few other public and university libraries in this area. It comes around 3 times a week.
Hey, that's great. At my last school, it could take a really long time to get the materials I needed. So when I had a project, I had to make a plan way in advance. This sounds much faster. Another thing I was wondering is there a place where I can bring my computer and hook it up?
Sure. There's a whole area here on the main floor where you can bring a laptop and plug it in for power. But on top of that, we also have a connection for the internet at every seat.
Nice. So I can do all the research I need to do right here in the library. I'll have all the resources, all the books and information I need right here in one place.
Yep, that's the idea. I'm sure you'll need photocopiers too. They're down the hallway to your left. We have a system where you have to use a copy card, so you'll need to buy a card from the front desk. You insert it into the machine and you're ready to make copies.
How much do you guys charge?
7 cents a copy.
Oh, that's not too bad. Thanks. Where's the collection of rare books?
Rare books are up on the 2nd floor. They're in a separate room where the temperature's controlled, to preserve the old paper in them. You need to get special permission to access them, and then you have to wear gloves to handle them, because the oils in our hands, can destroy the paper, and gloves prevent that, so we have a basket of gloves in the room.
Okay, thanks. I suppose that's all I need to know. You've been very helpful. Thanks.
Anytime. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that was it. It was even shorter. So let's see what we have in the question. The first one, the main idea says, why does the student come to the library? So why is it?
I think it's C, to attend the new student orientation.
Okay, do you guys agree?
No, I think it's D.
Okay. Hey, Nicole, what about you?
I think it's to attend a new student orientation.
Okay, so we're gonna go for the majority. Let's say C. We're gonna see. The second one says, why does the librarian point out the history section to the student? So why does she?
I think it's B.
Okay, you said D?
B.
B, okay. Do you guys agree, B?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Now the third one says, what does the student imply when the interlibrary loan service at his last school? Sorry, I didn't read that well. What does the student imply about the interlibrary loan service at his last school, his previous school? So what do you guys think? What does he imply?
A.
Okay. Do you guys agree? He never used it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have, what does the student need to do before he can use any rare books? We need to choose 2 answers. So what 2 answers are we gonna choose?
B and C.
Okay, do you all agree, B and C?
Yes.
I think it's A and B.
Okay. I'm sorry. So, okay, let's try B and C because I think 2 people agree with both. And we're gonna see them later. Now the next one says, listen to track 2. I'm gonna play it.
Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
I'll have all the resources, all the books and information I need right here in one place.
Yep, that's the idea.
Which sentence best expresses what the librarian means when she says this?
Yep, that's the idea.
Okay. So why does she say that? Yep, that's the idea. What does she express?
D.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. We're gonna see all answers. So D is correct. 4 was also correct. Obtain permission and put on gloves. He needed to purchase a card, but not for the rare books, but for the copies, I think, right? For the copies that he needed to make. So careful, right? That's why it's important to separate the points that I make. One point is for the copies, the other one was for the rare books. Now, in the third question, this is an implied question, right? So if we look at the transcript, let's see where the transcript is. The student says, at my last school, it could take a really long time to get the materials I needed for a project. I had to make a plan way in advance. This sounds much faster. So if he says, I had to make a plan in advance, it took a lot of time, it means that he probably used it, right? It's not that he didn't use it, but he used it and he just took a lot of time in doing the planning whole thing. So I guess that what he implies is not that he never used it, but it was inconvenient because it took so many days, I guess. So it was inconvenient to use this service, okay? They don't talk about price. They don't talk about, this is kind of the opposite, right? He has a negative attitude towards his previous service. So it was inconvenient. Careful with that one. Question 2 was correct. He will need to do research there. And I'm honestly surprised that the first question wasn't right. It's the main idea question, right? The problem of the student was actually that he couldn't attend to the student orientation. He couldn't attend to the student orientation, and which is why he wanted to learn about the resources, right? Because he was new. So pay attention in the beginning. 100%, well, not 90% of the time, you have one question asking for the problem. You need to make sure you get it. They say, I am new here. I couldn't come to the student orientation, and I'm wondering if you can give me a few quick pointers about the library, right? So he wants to know about the library because he couldn't attend the student orientation. So look at how the options are mixing things, right? Option C sounds familiar because it was sort of mentioned, but it's not true. This is false information. This is the one. So you need to not focus too much on writing down notes in the beginning, because maybe you listen to orientation and you wrote down, okay, student orientation. And then you see the question and you're like, it's C. No, pay attention in the beginning, make sure that you understand first before taking any notes. Okay, so to learn about the library's resources. So what do you think? I think it was also pretty good. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of 4, right? 3 out of 5. We made a mistake in 2. So it's still good, but it's all about practice. So what do you think? Do you have any questions? How was this one? Any comments before we go? No questions? Okay, guys. Really, no questions, no comments before we do the survey? Okay, guys, then please, I'm sending you the daily survey. We need to fill out 2 today, so I'll send the first one. And once you're done, I'll send the other one. Okay, thank you so much. I'm sending the other one now. Okay. Okay, guys, so thank you so much for joining. I'll see you all next class. Have a great night.
Thank you. See you next class.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.